Test. Good evening, everybody. My name is John Boyd, and I am the superintendent of Evergreen Public Schools. I want to thank you for coming tonight to be here with us. I think you'll get a lot out of this presentation today. Not I think, I know. So I'm just really appreciative that you're all here to learn with us about the dangers of fentanyl. There's been a lot in the media, a lot of news. It's a drug that is, it's killing people. And very small doses of it can kill people. And so Sergeant Sofianos over here, who will be our main presenter, came and spoke to our administration the other day, and it was about a month and a half ago. After that, we really kicked into action. The awareness of the dangers of this drug. We sent a letter to everybody's home, all the parents. We created a website with resources. We've gone out and bought Narcan for all of our schools. We've had Narcan in our schools. Narcan is a counter agent to specifically drug overdoses from fentanyl. I probably don't have that exactly right, but so we have it in all our buses now. Our security guards are carrying it with them. And we are working with our teaching and learning team too to try to develop some modules for students out in the buildings. We're really taking this seriously, and we're doing this in partnership with Vancouver Public Schools. Superintendent Jeff Snell presented at the last one in the Vancouver School District. I'm doing this one. Clark County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Sofianos is there, and Vancouver Police Department. So we're partnering, and we're really serious about making sure that we're doing awareness out in communities. And I have one thing I would ask of you tonight. This is one of those things where we could use your help. Go out and talk to 3 people, 5 people, your neighbors, your friends. Talk to your children about this, and let's get the word out about the dangers of fentanyl. I'm not going to steal Sergeant Sofianos' thunder, but we really need everybody to be key communicators about this. I do want to recognize one of my bosses is here. It's Victoria Bradford. Would you stand up, please, Victoria? Victoria is one of our school board directors, and our leadership's really serious about this, so she's here also in support of this really important endeavor. Better check my talking notes, make sure I hit everything. Oh, we also have a table near the exit with a sign-up sheet for any community members who live in our boundary who are interested in receiving more information about a drug-free community coalition. And we do wave back there. Yeah, he's right up the top of the stairs, so if you want more information, if you want to engage in this at a deeper level, I think that's your table up there. So yeah, we're excited to have you here today. I just want to thank you for having enough care and concern about yourself, your community, your fellow students around, so that we can, if tonight results in saving one child, we've succeeded. But we want every student to understand and every family to understand the dangers of fentanyl so that we can prevent any of the deaths that we're hearing about in our community and other communities around. So with that, I will give it to Sergeant Sofianos, and I think you have your mic, so I'll let you go.
I should be good.
Let's give him a big welcome.
Thank you. All right. Hi, everyone. My name's Bill Sofianos. I'm a sergeant with the Sheriff's Office. I've been there about 23 years now. Tell you a little bit about myself, to kind of explain why and how I ended up on this big stage. And something about me, I'll get out of the way first. This is a serious topic. I treat it very serious, but I also throw some jokes in there because that's my nature, and it also will help keep you awake. So go easy on me. My partner, Rodrigo Osorio, he's a detective with Vancouver Police, is just down the hall, and he's doing the same version of this, but in Spanish, right down the hall. So that's great. We did a couple of these just a couple days ago out at Fort Vancouver as well. So all the districts have really opened their doors to us to get this info out. So I was the supervisor of the drug task force here in Clark County the past 6 years. The drug task force was comprised of the Sheriff's Office, Vancouver Police, and Washington State Patrol. We have Homeland Security attached to us when we need that federal component. And what the Drug Task Force does is we go after very high-level drug dealers in the area. We are buying drugs every day. We're buying meth and fentanyl and cocaine, and that's our job. That's really all we do is go after high-level drug dealers. So in doing that, we come across drugs all the time. We stay up on the different trends, the different prices, and we really rarely, up until a couple years ago, were going to overdose deaths. Overdose deaths happen. I don't know why that keeps doing that. Am I doing it? You guys hear that? That's the stay awake thing that keeps. So overdose deaths happen, but the Drug Task Force, it wasn't our focus. All of a sudden, a couple years ago, back in 2019, fentanyl started coming into Clark County. And when fentanyl started coming into Clark County, we saw the overdose death rates skyrocket. So what I'm going to talk about today is, here, am I doing this? No, it ain't me. What I'm going to talk about today is what we've seen, what's happening in our community specifically, the numbers, the overdose numbers. And so this is more of a get the info out to educate those that might have the thought of experimenting with this drug, because what we're seeing, the ones that are experimenting are the ones that are dying trying this drug. It's not the drug to experiment with, and we'll go over why that is. So we'll have some time towards the end for questions. Let's see a moment.
My name is Dominic Tierno. Since I graduated high school. My name is Dominic Tierno. Since I graduated high school in 2014, I've had the great honor of directing a number of documentary films about drugs and drug addiction. Our mission is to revolutionize drug education by telling real-life stories that motivate young people to make one of the most important decisions of their life, and that's the decision to not use drugs. 2020 was the worst year for drug overdose deaths that we have ever seen. In the beginning of summer in 2020, I came across this article. A 14-year-old kid from a town I grew up in had died from what appeared to be a drug overdose. He's a smart, funny guy who, like many kids, was struggling with some anxiety issues and decided that he would turn to drugs to see if he could help himself with that. What happened was he went and bought this pill, this Oxycontin pill, from a guy he had known because he thought that pill might ease the pain of what he was going through mentally. Well, he didn't know it, but that Oxycontin pill wasn't a real Oxycontin pill. It was a fake pill. It looked just like the pill that he wanted to try, but instead of Oxycontin, it was made with fentanyl, a synthetic opioid known to be 50 to 100 times the strength of morphine. That one pill he took that night killed him almost instantly, and his mom found him dead in his bedroom the next morning. Before I can even finish that article, I'm scrolling through and I see another linked article. Not far away, around the same time, another 14-year-old dead from fentanyl. So then I go back to Google and I type in fentanyl deaths. I hit search, and then it all made sense. I saw another kid, and I saw high school students, college students, young adults, all recent, all over the country, all dead from fentanyl. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, these aren't just normal overdose deaths. These people think they're taking one drug and turns out they're being killed. Why have we not heard about this? You know, there's always been one main problem with the
put this presentation together.
And it's the reason why we
a minor, a kid, a child in Clark County overdose and die, and we've had several of them. When that happened, I asked myself, and I talked to some people who still have kids in school, and I said, what are you hearing about fentanyl? What's out there? And there wasn't much. And I thought to myself, well, our unit, we deal with this all the time. We're going to these deaths. we kind of have some firsthand knowledge on the issues. And like your superintendent said, if we save one kid by getting the information out, then it's worth the length of my career, to be honest with you. So that's what we're doing. What's shocking is even today, because there's been quite a bit that's hit the news. There's been a lot, even in Clark County, that has come out about fentanyl. But even today, kids, if you ask them, high school age kids, will still tell you, I don't know what fentanyl is. What's fentanyl? Not all of them. Again, the education's getting out there, but there should be none of them that don't know what fentanyl is and how it affects you, why it can kill you extremely easily. So I put this together primarily for this age group under 24 that are still trying to figure out what this drug is. When fentanyl hit the streets in 2019, it started as a way to kind of infiltrate heroin and that opioid market. We'll tell a little bit about why that is, and you'll see our numbers. Heroin in our area has really dropped off the map. Fentanyl has completely pushed heroin. Fentanyl is the new heroin. Heroin users have moved to fentanyl. We'll talk a little bit about how that happened. But our biggest issue is this right here, where if you ask folks, and even adults, what's the most dangerous drug out there? Fentanyl, with a lot of them, is still falling to the middle of the pack. When in reality, if you look, it's 14 times more deadly when it comes to overdoses than heroin. So with that comes that experimenting, that I'm going to try it, and that's where we see. I'll show you the numbers on the deaths, and that's only deaths recorded. We're not talking overdoses where people survive. So it's going to be quite a bit more catastrophic. Everyone knows fentanyl is maybe not everyone. Fentanyl is a real drug that is prescribed in hospital settings, right? So that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about drug dealers and cartels selling hospital-grade fentanyl. They're not selling the fentanyl patches or the fentanyl liquid. That is what hospitals will do. If you're having a surgery, it's a painkiller. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about illicit fentanyl. So fentanyl is it's a man-made substance. They're taking it in the powder form and they're pressing it into pills. So that right now is the initial most common source of fentanyl in our area are these blue pills here in the center. So those are made to look like 30 milligram oxycodone, prescription grade pharmaceutical pills, and they're fake. If you see these pills, a bag of these pills, they're fentanyl pills. We have yet to come across a bag of real oxycodone in a drug dealer's pocket, car, house. So in 2019, we came across our first large seizure of fentanyl in Clark County. We stopped a car. It ended up having about 40 pounds of methamphetamine in it, and a big bag of these blue pills, about 5,000 pills. And we thought, okay, well, they were selling a bunch of oxycodone along with their methamphetamine. We had no idea what it was. So we sent it to the lab. We still needed a lab to confirm, yes, these are oxycodone. That process takes a couple months, and it came back fentanyl. They were all fentanyl, and that was our first large seizure, 2019. So you keep that in mind when I show you here in a little bit the death rate from 2019 until the end of 2021. So currently, we're seeing two types here in Clark County. This is the most predominant, these blue, fake, counterfeit pills. The video at the beginning showed you a pill press. I'll show you another picture of one we seized here in Clark County, where two folks were pressing fentanyl pills in Clark County. and they just kind of mix a little bit of fentanyl with a whole lot of binders, and they make these pills. This up here is powder, and this is fentanyl powder. This is what is now coming into our area. We're starting to seize fentanyl powder. I'll show you here in a second some real colorful, happy-looking fentanyl, and that's our next big problem. So currently, it's these two forms. Fentanyl powder, when I talk about powder, it's actually like a sidewalk chalk consistency. It's actually pretty thick, and you have to break it up. And it's not 100% fentanyl, similar to the pills. There's small, too large amounts of fentanyl mixed in with a whole lot of different binders. Kind of to note, when we are seizing large amounts of pills, 5,000, 10,000 pills that people are out here selling in Clark County, we've yet to have real pharmaceutical pills. These are all counterfeit pills, coming from different areas, through the mail, in cars. Xanax is one of the more popular ones. They come in all sorts of different colors, and these are not pharmaceutical pills. These are counterfeit, fake pills pressed to look like the real thing. Alprazolam in real ones, the fake ones contain this clonazepam. Do what I do when I really need to know something and Google it. Google knows all. I've got a whole lot of Google stuff in here. So you see some real, you see some fake. The moral of this story is the folks that are pressing these pills and putting a fake counterfeit substance could care less about who's taking it, about how much of one substance they put into it. So the problem with that is we've always kind of known kids are a little bit more likely to want to try prescription drugs because they think they're kind of safe, they're prescribed by doctors, you know, you can pop a couple, you should be fine. The problem is these are not made by chemists. These are made by people who could care less. That was kind of a rhyme, it's the first time I used that. Chemists and care less. This is rainbow fentanyl. So we have now started seizing this in Clark County. Who in here can tell me why drug cartels that are making billions of dollars decided to make fun-looking candy fentanyl?
Attractive to our youth.
So they weren't talking to pharmaceutical.
Attractive to the youth, and what else?
So they weren't talking to pharmaceutical.
Not copying the pharmaceutical. Well, lucky for us, they're still marking them with the M30s. And I say lucky for us because we can at least look at them and know if that's a fentanyl pill. What I would say is this is attractive. So 2 years ago we heard they were going to start making fentanyl look like candy, and we didn't really know what that meant. We thought maybe they're going to make them look like gummy bears or, you know, sweet tarts. You know, who knows? Something that we would look at and then have no idea how to, you know, tell apart. And then this happened. So I'm thankful that it has this M30 marking. We know that that is a fentanyl pill. And then this is the rainbow powdered fentanyl. When we saw this for the first time, that's exactly what I thought. This is a problem. If fentanyl's not bad enough, now we have it colorful and happy. One of the classes I gave, there was a 10-year-old in the audience, and afterwards she came up to me with her mom and said, I looked at that and that looks so yummy. And I'm like, it does. I look at it. And if I didn't know better, I'd think, yeah, this looks kind of sour, maybe sweet. You know, it just, there's no reason to make it look so attractive. But here we are. DEA put out, they put out a lot of information on fentanyl. Their pictures of rainbow fentanyl, where do you think DEA got those pictures from? They sent it out nationwide. Yes, good call. What area? Portland metro area. So why do you think some of so this is the newer stuff that's come out. Why do you think our area gets it maybe sooner than a lot of the other states?
Because people is more addicted to it.
Because people are more addicted? Yeah.
The Portland area is one of the biggest problems in addiction.
Because Portland area has a lot of drug issues, correct? And that is because of I-5. It's great if you want to go to Canada or California or Mexico. It's I-5 runs right through our county. And it is a thoroughfare for drugs to go up and down I-5 and east, right? So we are constantly taking off cars full of large amounts of drugs on I-5, coming, south to north depending on the drug, north to south sometimes. So the first class I gave on this presentation, I was asked if we had seized any marijuana laced with fentanyl. And I said no, I haven't heard of marijuana laced with fentanyl, haven't seen it. We do know that they're lacing cocaine is the number one drug that they're putting fentanyl into. Obviously heroin. But marijuana I hadn't heard of. And so when I got asked that question, I was curious. I go to a drug bust. The following day, we go and arrest this methamphetamine dealer. Pretty decent sized methamphetamine dealer. Guy's been in prison several times in his life, and he says to me, hey, I heard there's a guy selling marijuana laced with fentanyl to high school students. Just out of the blue, he tells me this. I didn't ask him, he just tells me. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, who? And he goes, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it, is what he told me. And I don't know if he ever took care of it. But it was just odd that I get the question, so then what do, right? I just said it. I go to where everyone goes. I go to Google, and I find 6 different states where they have seized marijuana laced with fentanyl. They have made arrests of folks stemming from overdoses of people smoking marijuana laced with fentanyl. So, tell me why someone would lace marijuana with fentanyl. Now I'm the buyer. I'm not buying. I don't say, hey, give me some marijuana with fentanyl on it. I'm buying marijuana, not from a store, not from, we have stores you can go buy marijuana from, but I'm here to tell you there's still a black market for marijuana. People are still selling marijuana outside the stores. So why would someone sell me marijuana with fentanyl on it?
Makes them more addicted.
Gets them addicted.
Their clientele.
Gets the clientele up.
Because most people think that marijuana is from the earth, it's healthy, so you're gonna smoke it, so that's the fentanyl to it.
Mm-hmm. People are buying marijuana. It's out there. The addictive part of it is where they get you, right? If you can get someone addicted to this drug, you have a customer. Now people say, and we'll talk a little bit about why it is, if fentanyl's just killing everybody, then where's their customers? I mean, they're just killing all their customers. And that's not what's happening. I'm not here to lie to you or make it seem like the sky is falling, but I'm going to be honest about what we're seeing. And not everyone dies that uses this. Why do you think that there's a group that we don't go to that survive it, that can take maybe 10, 15, 20 pills, but if I take 1 pill, I die? Why do you think that is? Tolerance.
They're depressed, so they don't, how much you need one.
Correct, and we'll get to that. These are all pressed differently. Tolerance is one of the biggest issues, and not issues, but it's what leads one person to not overdose and another one to overdose. So they put fentanyl and cocaine, they put it on marijuana. Now we haven't seen it on marijuana. Here in Washington, what happens if I go to an overdose, and I'll talk a little bit about the ones I've been to, and I walk in and I see marijuana. As a police officer, how much do I care about marijuana in Washington? Yeah, it's really, we quit looking at marijuana. It's just, We do still take off some pretty large marijuana grows and houses that are legal, okay, that we do that. But when we even go into an overdose and marijuana's in there, we're not looking at the marijuana. And so it is possible that we've overlooked laced marijuana. We don't know. So it is something that we are looking at now that we realize, because if something's happening in 6 different states in the U.S., is it not going to happen here? Are we immune to it? No. Folks are making billions of dollars on this drug. We'll talk a little bit about that. They want it everywhere. They want people addicted to this drug. So, something to think about. Again, you're going to the store to buy it. I wouldn't be concerned, but it is happening. Folks are lacing other drugs with it. I think it's important for folks to know why anyone ever ends up on this drug to begin with. So I worked in the jail for a few years. Worked in the jail, came out. I've been on patrol now for 20. Worked in the jail for 3. I saw folks come into the jail on drugs. I saw them when they were clean. I've seen them out here on and off drugs. And I've had a lot of conversations with folks. And opioid, when we're talking about an opioid, we're talking heroin and fentanyl. Those are our 2 big ones right now. Opioid is a horrible drug that people get addicted to, and it is the hardest to get off of. Very good people get addicted to this drug and it grabs a hold of them. Where do you think a lot of the times that addiction starts? Like the very beginning of it? Surgery, doctors. It's exactly what they tell us. That's exactly what folks that have been using an opioid for many, many years. The story is almost the same, and it's tragic, right? So you get hurt, you go to the doc, you get a prescription for an opioid, a painkiller. That painkiller runs out, and heroin was the next best thing. So I just think it's kind of good to understand that progression, kind of where that starts, because there's a couple different ways we're going to talk about how this gets into the hands of kids, is who we want to talk about, right? Well, heroin now, we get fentanyl. Fentanyl is now come into the picture, and we'll talk about that. What's another way we get people that try any drug, really?
Like they start in high school with the friends?
Yeah. This is the group. So who do you think that we're responding to, the deaths? Do you think we're going to the folks that are using 20 pills a day or the 1 pill a day? I gave this answer away. I do that all the time. I give the answer and then I ask the question. So I do it. You got it right. It's the experimenters. It's the, my friend has one. So we went to an overdose, an adult female whose friend gave her a few pills. She was having some pain, and she said, "Hey, I got these pills. I'm going to teach you how to use them." She cut them in half, and she said, "Make sure you just use the 1 half, and everything will be great." So she does. She uses the 1 half. She's at home with her husband. Had never used fentanyl before. Takes the 1 half. 15 minutes goes by. Doesn't really feel much of anything. Takes the other half, and dies. And dies. So that's who we're talking about, and that's my fear. Now, I want everyone to be off of this drug, don't get me wrong. But the ones we're going to, we're walking in the houses, these are folks that have either never used this drug or have used it a little bit and trusted someone. We're finding, people using this drug by themselves, and so they just end up dying by themselves experimenting with this drug. And again, this isn't the old time, don't do drugs, stay off of marijuana, it's the gateway. I might believe that, but that's not what I'm saying. Google it. This is the one. I'm like, just don't do this drug. If you want to try another drug, I can't stop you. Just don't do this drug. This is the one we've been going to that's killing people. So this is where it starts. So we talked about tolerance, because there's 2 things that happen that I think are tricking people, and that's why they're dying. Tolerance. So is anyone in here named Jimmy? All right, good. I'll use Jimmy I do it every time. And then there's someone in the audience. So Jimmy, right? So let's say Jimmy. Jimmy's been he's been using opioids for a year or whatever, and he can pop 2 pills a day or smoke a couple pills. And Timmy, Jimmy and Timmy, right? So Timmy says, "Well, I want to try it." He's like, "Okay, well, sure, I can do 5 pills. You could do a pill. What's 1 pill, right? And I can do 5." So that's our first problem, because we know Jimmy's got a tolerance. Timmy don't. Very likely Timmy's going to die trying that 1 pill. Not 100%, but do you want to gamble with 50 to 75%, right? What's the other reason? So I already gave the answer away. We're not going to folks that have been using this for an extended period of time. Tolerance was one reason. What's the other reason?
Hopefully it's not predictable. What was good yesterday is not good tomorrow.
Right. But what is that group that is aware, familiar, and kind of respects how dangerous this drug is? What do they have going for them? Huh? Tolerance, and they're prepared. So here's what they tell me. Folks will not use this drug by themselves because they know the chance of the overdose for that exact reason. I could have a bag of 100 pills. Every one of those pills has a different amount of fentanyl in it. These aren't chemists. So when you buy a 30 milligram of real, pharmaceutical pill, right, you can cut that in half, and then each half has the same amount of, or a split between the milligrams, right, 15 to 15, whatever. That's not how this works, and I'll show you an example of what I mean by that. So folks will tell us how many times they've had to Narcan. You heard the superintendent talk about Narcan and naloxone. How many times they've had to Narcan their friend. So that's how many times they've had to stop them from dying when using this drug. 99.9% of the people I talk to on this drug do not want to be on this drug. Absolutely do not. It is the hardest thing to get off of. They don't want to die and have to, be revived. But this is the hardest drug to get off of. And so to even think about, well, I'm just going to go ahead and start somewhere with this drug is just, the wrong idea. So they got the tolerance and they're ready. Our kids, our juveniles, our high school kids, even our, 24 and under, don't think that way. They think, well, I'm going to use it. I'm going to try it by myself, maybe with a friend, but they're not prepared for what happens, and that's why we're going to their deaths. Why are the cartels pushing fentanyl instead of heroin?
Because it's more addictive to the people.
More addictive and cheaper. Watch this. I figured out how to do that. The dollar signs roll in. So that's 100% right. So heroin. How do people produce and make heroin? The answer's right there. Poppies, right? You need acres. You need acres of land. You need the right temperature. You need the place to do it. You need people to harvest and then produce that to heroin. Back when we were buying heroin in our area, we were paying about $15,000 a pound. About an acre and a half, or an acre of poppies for about 1.5 pounds of heroin. That's a lot of land for a small amount of heroin. So now you look on the other side and you think fentanyl, man-made. You don't need sun, you don't need acres, you don't need people to produce it. DEA says the fentanyl, the things that make fentanyl are coming from China, they're coming into Mexico, and that's where the production's happening. Now, and I get this in every presentation, so I'll just say it here now, that doesn't mean that Mexico's bad and that everyone in Mexico is bad. That's not what that means. It means there are groups in there that are producing this drug and sending it across the U.S., but there's also people in the U.S. pressing this drug and selling it here. So it's happening everywhere, but primarily the largest quantity is coming south through Mexico into California. So, and these numbers are a little dated, but about $800 worth of product, fentanyl, produces about 500,000 pills. 2019, how much do you think we were paying for one pill? And remember, we're buying this drug. So one pill in 2019, what do you think we paid for it? Just throw a number out.
$10.
$10, higher. 15, double it.
$30?
All right, 30. $30 for one pill in 2019. One pill, 30 bucks. That's a lot of money. Now, it's kind of like, you know, Costco, if you buy in bulk, if you buy 100 pills, you can get it for maybe 20 or 25 bucks a pill. But $30 a pill. I purposely didn't change these numbers because I always give the answers. How much do you think we're buying right now, today, I could go buy one pill for? $1.50. If I want to go buy in quantity, if I want to go buy 100 pills, I can get that down to $1, maybe a little over. What does that tell you about what's going on in our area right now with fentanyl?
There's a lot of it.
It's saturated. It's everywhere. We used to have methamphetamine dealers were methamphetamine dealers. Cocaine dealers were cocaine dealers. Now, methamphetamine dealers are methamphetamine and fentanyl dealers. Cocaine dealers are cocaine and fentanyl dealers. Because the money, and there's so much of it, it's almost lost its value. But what's our fear of that now? Back in 2019, you know, how many 15-year-olds are running around with 180 bucks in their pocket to go blow on some pills?
But now they're getting access because it's so cheap to buy it.
And now it's so cheap, the access is there. And not only that, it's so cheap that it ends up on the floor, it ends up in the parks. You know, if you, again, Google, it never lies. There's been kids that have picked these pills up in parks and popped them in their mouth and had to be Narcan. So there's no value to it. There's so much of it.
You really see people that are putting these in their mouth and not smoking these?
Yeah, we'll talk about how they're made, or I mean how they're used. Yeah, people do still take them, you know, in their mouth, but primarily this drug is smoked, and I'll show you a little bit about how that works. So DEA, this was their One Pill Can Kill campaign. I try to keep moving so I don't get way over here. This was their One Pill Can Kill campaign. It's kind of hard to tell, but so very minimal amounts, grains of fentanyl will do the trick. Will either get you high or kill you, right? So how are these pills made? Anyone in here not love chocolate chip cookies? Anyone? Raise a hand. Okay. I had a crate of them I was going to bring in, but someone don't like them, so sorry, can't have any. Why do you think, so chocolate chip cookies, how do you put this, how do you connect that to how a fentanyl pill is made? Who's a baker in here? I'm not, but I know how these cookies are made. So, if you love chocolate chip cookies, this is a boring cookie, right? And you can see the chocolate chips in there. We'll pretend for a second that that's fentanyl, right? You can see them. And then this guy, everyone in here loves. You need a glass of milk. This is a great cookie covered in chocolate chips. And then this is that one that if you, you're over at a friend's house and they break out a box and they're like, hey, have a cookie, and you're like, well, what is it? Oh, it's chocolate chip. Well, do you trust your friend? Because you don't know what's in this cookie, right? You have to break it open. But if I said take a bite out of this cookie, and if you bite into 2 chocolate chips, you die, then, I mean, do you really love chocolate chips that much to risk biting into this cookie? It could be this one, it could be that one. So when they produce this drug, when they make it, when they press it into the pill, that's what they're doing. They're taking several binders. Acetaminophen is one of them. You don't find acetaminophen in real 30 milligram blue oxycodone. It's not a substance that pharmaceutical that they make in that. So that was our first clue when we started testing these. That if they had acetaminophen in them, they were fake oxycodone. So they throw the binders in, they throw the color, the blue powder, and they just kind of guess. And they base that off of whatever math that these folks are doing, and they put it in there. So what does that do to that fentanyl pill? It's this, right? I could have a bunch of it on one side of that pill, and I could have none on the other. Or the whole pill could be covered in it, or the whole pill could have almost none of it. And so quality control, believe it or not, high-level drug dealers don't do quality, they don't care. It might kill people, some people might like it. Now they want it to be good enough so they get customers that come back, but they're not taking the time to make sure that it's done correctly. So that's another big issue with the experimenting of these pills. That's how they're made. How do you die from an opioid overdose?
The heart stops.
Heart stops, respiratory arrest. So it's not from partying all night long. Your heart doesn't explode. When I saw these pills, I guess for me, that's what I computed it to. I'm like, well, they're colorful, they look happy. No, it's this over here. It's the same as heroin. It slows your body down so much that you just stop breathing. You just stop breathing. The overdoses we've gone to, now this isn't one where you use a pill and then 10 or 15 minutes later you fall down from it. The ones we go to, it's immediate. And not an immediate death, but immediately out. Smoke it and you're out. You fell, you're still gripping paraphernalia when you're found. So it happens that fast. It's not like you can take the pill and then maybe Narcan yourself or wait and see what happens. And possibly that could happen, but the ones we go to, it happens immediately. The stuff is still in their hands. You could have Google come up here and present. Washington and Oregon have been hammered by this. High school aged kids, middle school aged kids, overdosing and living, and overdosing and dying on this drug. One of the things I like to put out there, and this is all, Portland and Washington, one of the things I like to put out there that I never got told when I was a kid, I knew I wanted to do this job when I was young, but I never knew this. Luckily, I never sold drugs. I wouldn't be standing up here. One of the things we do as detectives is we go after the ones that sell the drugs that kill people. Did anyone here not know that's a crime? You can go to jail, prison for it. So I would guarantee you there are some kids out there that have no idea that if this drug passes through their hand to someone else and that person dies, that they can be held criminally responsible for it. So the lady I told you about that took the one pill, we indicted 2 people federally for that death. We have another one right now that's looking at federal prosecution. So if you are involved with handing this drug off, you don't have to sell it, you just have to give it to somebody. If you're involved in it, you can be held responsible. So, hopefully that message gets out. Hopefully that gets some kids going, I don't even want any part of that. Because I think some do it without bad intentions, but it could be 10 years or more in prison. And so this is Songs for Charlie. Song for Charlie is an organization, a husband and wife. They lost their college-age son to a fentanyl overdose several years ago, and they formed this nonprofit. And so they do a lot of education. You can get online and look at their stuff. Yesterday I got an email. So I did this presentation 2 days ago. Yesterday I got an email from a gentleman in Portland who said, hey, my teenager died 2 years ago from a fentanyl overdose, and he now works with this group, Song for Charlie, to get information out there. So look at, from 2019 to 2020, look at our age group there that is the most likely to overdose on this drug. 14. I will tell you, there's been a 14-year-old in Clark County that's overdosed on this drug. Do you think 14 or 15-year-old is a hardcore user that's been using drugs, his or her whole life? Right? That's a short life. And that's why this is the way it is. And again, it's just that getting the information to the kids. What do you think about this, the 80-year-olds out here? Why do you think that is? Why do you think we still got 80-year-olds using fentanyl? It's the pain, right? It's the pain. So it's like a medicine. So here's what happened. 2019, these pills hit the streets. Users did not know it was fentanyl. They were buying it as oxys until people started overdosing. And then pretty quickly we knew, oh, this is fentanyl. Do you think that the ones that wanted this drug, or the opioid, or even heroin, said, okay, I don't want any more fentanyl. I'm not buying any more pills. That's what I thought would happen. I thought once they were like, oh, fentanyl, oh gosh, I'm staying away. The exact opposite happened. And that was the point of it. They needed fentanyl because it's so much stronger than heroin. I'll show you the numbers here in a second. If we see heroin in Clark County today, we're kind of like, whoa, I can't believe they've got heroin. Heroin is on its way. It is on its way out. It's gone. Fentanyl is completely taken. I've only met one person who went from heroin to fentanyl back to heroin. Just one. And I've talked to a lot of folks that use this. So this is our problem. Under 24 years old, that they're kind of most likely to overdose off of this drug. And these are some seizures here in Clark County. This is very few, but this is the pill press that I told you about. This was down the road from Hudson Bay High School. In this trailer, this was a Vancouver and a Battleground pair that were pressing pills for I think a year and a half. It was a mobile trailer, and they've both been federally indicted for that. Everyone heard of meth labs? Who in here thinks there's still meth labs going strong out here? Okay, good. No meth labs. They're a thing of the past. Some people still might dabble or play around, but the new lab is the fentanyl labs. So you see these folks here all done up. This is the Washington State Patrol's lab team, and then a reserve unit that comes out and deals with like WMDs and that kind of stuff. The folks that were pressing the pills had their own suits because of how deadly it is. And we'll talk at the end about this, but fentanyl is deadly when inhaled, right? So there's fentanyl patches that are made to be put on yourself, and that, you know, it absorbs into your system. When fentanyl first came out, first hit, we were like, don't even look at it. If you look at it, you know, you overdose. And we learned a lot from then. But when it's in the air is when it's most deadly. And so now that we're talking about fentanyl powder being the next best thing, that's a huge concern. I talked a little bit about the price of pills. Fentanyl powder right now is about the same price as Coke. It's about $1,200 an ounce that we're paying for fentanyl powder. So it's coming in the market at a high rate, and then eventually it'll come down once it gets kind of, again, saturated in our air. So remember that. It was 2022, $1,200 an ounce, and we'll see what it is at the end of this year. So this is the fentanyl powder. How many pills do you think that is sitting there? Kind of hard to see.
70,000.
70,000, very close. That was 100,000 pills. It's kind of deceiving. So another popular thing for this drug is how easy it is to transport, how easy it is to hide. Dogs, they're starting to teach canines to alert on this, but you know, right off the bat, canines weren't alerting to this drug, and so again, it was an open market to really start flooding it into our area. Tinfoil. What do we use tinfoil for? Cooking. There's another big one, and it's not from using drugs. We'll talk about that in a second. Leftovers. Or insulation, yeah, for your head, right? From the aliens. So those are the two main things I know you would use tinfoil for. If you find tinfoil in your kid's pants pocket, that should lead to some questions. If you find tin foil in their backpack, that should lead to some questions. And maybe they're in a class where they're using tin foil, that's great. It should lead to some, hey, what are you doing with this? And a little bit more digging. If you find tin foil with black lines on it like that, then that's drug paraphernalia. Unless they burnt, I don't know, some kind of food. But this is the primary way that this drug is used, the pill and the powder. Real pharmaceutical pills, can you smoke real oxycodone pills? And it might be ways, but, huh? Yeah, so years ago, pharmaceutical companies put a substance in pills that you couldn't melt them down anymore to smoke them, because that's how they were being used. The cartels that are making this drug decided not to put that in their pill because they wouldn't sell many of them. So these pills will melt, and that's the primary way that they're being used. They're being put on tin foil, it's being heated up under the tin foil, and then they're using something to inhale the smoke. Thus the straws, and then what is this blue thing here? That's a pen. Is there an ink insert in it? Okay, so again, what is a hollowed out pen used for in a high school? Spit wads. So I'll give you that. But it's also the most common thing we see when people are using this drug. It's readily available. You got a pen, you take it apart, and now you can use it to smoke fentanyl, heroin off of tinfoil. Last year we got a bit of a scare. 2 folks with fentanyl in their vape pens. It has to be a certain kind of vape pen. I'm not a vapor. I did try it once or twice, but I gave it up. So I don't know a lot about these pens, but I do know we took one apart and it had 2 or 3 pills inside of it. So it was actually smoking fentanyl straight from the vape pen. So that, in and of itself, is a little freaky if you share vapes, right? Again, this isn't a don't ever vape, don't share your buddy's vape, but be aware, be educated to it. I'm not saying every vape pen out there has this, but I came across 2 that do. So do you want to be the one that, just hit your buddy's vape without really knowing what's in it? So be aware of it.
Or just make sure to ask what is it.
Yeah, ask.
Yeah, one time I was offered to bake, and it was a pen, and I said, what's that? And she said, it's weed. I said, oh, I just smoke that, thank you.
Oh, weed? Yeah. Yeah, ask. Yeah, it's not a bad question. Might be raspberry grape or whatever, or it could be fentanyl. So, boy, apps, right? So these are what we're most commonly seeing. If you have kids and they got a cell phone, you've got to stay on top of it. These apps change all the time. They get new ones because the old ones get found out. There's a lawsuit right now, if people read about it, for Snapchat, for just this, because it kind of allows such a open drug market to happen. So a bunch of families that have lost kids to overdose deaths are suing Snapchat right now. So different social media outlets, and now we're also seeing a lot of the digital currency being used to buy and sell this stuff. Be mindful of some of the words, M30s, blueberries, the Xanny bars, there's all these different words, and then they'll even use emojis. These are questions you should be asking, and then again, if you aren't necessarily believing the answer, then do what? Yeah, and I don't work for Google. I should at the end of this, but look it up. Educate yourself. That's how I have to do it to keep up with this stuff. You have to just stay educated on it. If you have kids that are high risk or you're concerned about. And so these are our cases. And so this is our seizures. This is what we've done 2019 and then 2022. So you can see in 2019, fentanyl cases were 4% of what we did. It doubled and tripled really year after year. And last year, I think this was bumped up another percent. It was about 36%. From 4 to 36. And that's also a little deceiving because our methamphetamine cases, I think they're down at 28. So a lot of those meth cases were meth and fentanyl. So it wasn't like they just had meth. It was the majority of what we did last year was fentanyl, and coming into this year, it's the same way. And you can kind of see what happened to heroin, 7%. From 29%, which is a lot, we had about 54 cases in 2019. Those were big cases we were working, down to 12 this last year. A couple of those we even accidentally came across. Heroin is heroin's a thing of the past, and then this is just year by year. Green is meth, yellow is heroin, cocaine is blue, and fentanyl is purple. What happened in 2020 and 2021?
It skyrocketed.
Well, but what happened? What did we all have to deal with? COVID. So you saw some of those slides if I didn't go through them too fast. Overdoses were killing more people than COVID was, right? But in 2020 and 2021, COVID happened. I still had to work. We were still out trying to get drug dealers. We were being told by people trying to get large supplies of drugs that they couldn't get them. Waiting down in California for the load. Why do you think that was? Business, border, tighter security, and shipping lanes was a big one. They really kind of shut down a lot of stuff, right? And so this is the point, I like to point it out because I think it's interesting, but at the same time, because I will never, always get the, close the border, right? We're talking $1 billion company. Do you think closing the border is going to make this stop? What's going to make this stop? Huh? Prevention.
No more demand.
Just people not wanting it. If you've got buyers for something, they're going to get it. So we kind of know we're in a losing battle. We've got to do more to actually just stop people from wanting to use this drug, right? And that takes a lot of resources. But it was a pretty interesting time of year when we were actually having trouble finding this drug. And so that's our deaths. The way the system works, it can take, I'm right now waiting on toxicology results. It's been almost 5 months to find out what substance killed a person. So it takes a long time. So the 2022 numbers are not out. We probably won't know the actual Clark County deaths till probably middle of the year, probably June. It would be my guess, maybe July, but probably by June. So right now we don't know. But 13 in 2019, and this is just fentanyl related overdoses, and then in 2021 we're up to 57. That's huge. When I told you at the beginning that part of our job has now become going to these overdose deaths, I will tell you my unit was very small. Right now there's 3 detectives in that unit. And they go to every fentanyl overdose death where there's something to follow up with, there's some clue or some lead to find out who sold them those drugs. It is overwhelming, the overdoses that we're going to. And I'm not just talking the number of them, I'm talking the type. They're going in, and these are folks that are working that might have never used a drug. It's just it's a different environment, and it's heartbreaking. And every death is heartbreaking. I don't want anyone to die from a drug overdose, but when I'm talking fentanyl specific, what we have seen time and time again are folks where parents are saying they've never even used it. I've never seen a drug before, in their room. And here they are now dead from trying it. So this number, I'd be shocked if it goes down, if it went down in 2022, but that will be yet to be seen. You can look at the population of the other counties in the state, and we're pretty on par with them when it comes to population. King County being the most, with almost 360 fentanyl overdoses in 21.
Is it still the policy of Clark County, if a parent brings in a drug that they find on their kid, that the kid won't be prosecuted? I've worked in a pharmacy as a technician since 2005 in Clark County. And we have parents bringing in baggies, and until tonight, I never knew that M30 was a fentanyl. And the parents bring it in, and you know, the pharmacist says, well, this is what it looks like, but we don't know. You can take it to, there's supposed to be a lab they can take it to, is that correct?
To have it tested?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's private labs. The State Patrol Lab is who tests
Okay, so it's the
for
state.
us.
But are we letting our pharmacists know, our pharmacy schools? Because we've seen ODs in our bathrooms, you know.
That's a great, yeah, and I mean, it's incredible. So for those that didn't hear, and I know this is being recorded, but pharmacies having these bags brought in by parents or things like that, saying, I found these on my kid, or I found it in my kid's bedroom, and it's those M30s. I guarantee you they're fentanyl.
But that, even though I have to do 20 hours of continuing education every year for 3 licenses for the state of Oregon, state of Washington, and then national license. And this information isn't even on either of them to make us aware, because that's pretty scary to me as a pharmacy technician. If a parent comes in and has a pill like this, and they, of course, you know, want to get their child in trouble, and
So your question, I'll answer. So the question was, are there times police do or don't charge a child or whatever for possession? So first off, in Washington, police don't charge anyone. It's a prosecutor, right? So we can arrest someone. It's up to a prosecutor in this state whether or not they charge. Possession currently in Washington state is really not that big a deal. So we don't look at possession. Now, it is a big deal, but it's looked at. It's not a big deal in the criminal justice system right now. That is a whole other issue in and of itself. If you talk to folks that are hooked on a drug and addicted to a drug, they'll tell you they need something to get them to stop that drug. Most people don't just do it on their own. So we're kind of in a bit of a spiral right now. If a parent calls in and says, I found these pills on my kid, then chances of us charging the kid with possession is little to none. Now, if they're selling the drug, then that's a different story, okay? Because we are concerned with kids selling drugs to kids.
right.
So if they're selling drugs, yeah, then they're gonna have a problem. It doesn't mean they're gonna go to prison, and, you know, but there is gonna be some repercussions there. That is with us going out to these overdoses. If we're finding out a kid sold a pill to a kid, then yeah, we're going to look to charge them. But if it's a parent that has a question, and we do get that as well, people will call 311, a non-emergency line, I found these pills, we'll go pick them up. The chances of any kind of prosecution on that are pretty nil. We might ask other questions, but in reality, no. I hear what you're saying about pharmacists not getting educated on this stuff, and it's no one, you know, it's a big problem. I've given the presentation to only so many groups, and schools and school districts was the priority. So, you know.
They're not able to do that. The regular ones from the pharmacy, they're not able to do no more. They're making it white.
Yeah, okay, they're white now. So, 2 things. Like I said, just picking up a pill, unless you're cut or something, the chances of it actually, getting into your system are pretty nil, right? So a lot of people pick up these pills, users, they're not overdosing. I wouldn't do it. We always use gloves, but it's less likely. What causes those unintentional overdoses is it in the air. So if the pill's broke, the powder, where cops end up overdosing on this is when they're searching things and they're moving stuff around, or there's a bag of pills and you try to get the air out of it, and now you're pushing, that out. That's what is going to cause that unintentional overdose. What's it going to feel like for you if you're getting this unintentional overdose? How's your body going to feel?
Probably sleepy.
Yeah, you're going to start to, are you going to start going, oh my God, my heart's pounding a million beats a minute? Right, so we've had folks that have gone, oh, I'm having an overdose, and they're running around the room, and you're like, nah, I don't think you are. So just know, if all of a sudden you feel like wanting to pass out, that could be what it is. If you're doing something, your kid's friend's backpack, you're looking through stuff, and all of a sudden you're feeling that way, then that could be what it is. So Narcan and naloxone, last couple of things we'll talk about. One thing will stop an opioid overdose, Narcan and naloxone. If you give this to someone that's having a heart attack or any other medical condition, this will not affect them. It won't hurt them. So what you end up getting a lot of times nowadays when medics show up and someone's out, they're passed out or whatever, they'll go to Narcan or naloxone. It's similar. They'll do it just to see, because it doesn't hurt them if they're having some other kind of medical emergency. So you should have this stuff. Like the superintendent said, every school district I've talked to in Clark County has this. Maybe not at every school. Yes?
They only let, I just was talking to OSPI about it, they're only letting the nurses and like a couple of the teachers know how to.
Be trained on how to use it. So I don't know about that, about who's trained to use it in schools. What I do know, and I think it's come from these kind of presentations, I've talked to dang near every school district. What people don't put together is how many of these you might need for an overdose. So fentanyl is so strong, one nasal spray, even two, might not counteract it. So it might initially, someone might wake up, but then they could go back out. So I'll show you on this next slide how to get naloxone for free. It's one of those things you should just throw in your first aid kit or in your car. I came across an accident the other day. I was off duty, coming home from the gym. It was a rear-ended accident, and I had it in my car, but the woman was fine. It was just a rear-ender. Like, oh well, it's gonna save your life. So have it with you. I'm always looking for a medal. And you're not get one. So Narcan and naloxone. The problem that I heard with school districts, and I think they're addressing it, when I would ask, hey, how many packets do you have? Well, we got 2 or we got 4. It's like, okay, that could be enough for one. But what we've seen across the U.S. when people use it, when kids use it, they're either using it by themselves or you've got a group of kids. We've had one school, and I think it was Georgia, 5 kids overdosed at the school. So you got to be prepared for those more massive overdoses.
Well, I can just tell you, this thing will come on. Test. Anyway, we have we're training our bus drivers. We're going to have Narcan. We have Narcan on all of our buses. We're having all of our security folks carry it with them. We just spent $10,000 upgrading our Narcan supply across the district. So nurses, security personnel, administrators, bus drivers, we've got it in every nook and cranny in several places in every school. Yeah, the nurses aren't there every day on campus, but we have security folks. We have we have admin. They're able to do it, and so we have trained people that are able to administer it at each school, and more than one.
Train the kids? Is that what you said? Yeah, so Narcan naloxone is not a controlled substance. So for you as a parent, if you want to buy some and have your kid have it, it's not going to get taken from them. It's not a controlled substance. Now, if police or school find it, then maybe they'll ask some questions because maybe they're at risk for drug use or some things like that. But if you as a parent, and I guess I don't want to talk for the school districts, but what I'll say is, as law enforcement, we're not taking naloxone from people. It's not a controlled substance. It might be a little different in the schools. I know they have rules about medications and stuff that you can carry, but these are the places you can get it. This website up top, you can get free ones. I think if you've got several people in your household, and you can get several free doses, and it comes pretty quick. And it comes in a box of 2. Picture's good. And then I always like to end things on a bad note. So,
can we go back to that last slide so I can take a picture?
There you are.
Thank you very much.
So we were in a conference last year, a drug conference. There was a speaker that was from Fresno. He was a detective at Fresno. And they have just recently started seizing fentanyl with this substance in it, xylazine. Xylazine is a tranquilizer used by veterinarians. Xylazine is not an opioid, but it has similar effects of an opioid. It is made to make the fentanyl kind of high last longer. So they have been seizing pills with xylazine. What's the problem with that? Because Narcan doesn't work. Narcan won't work on this. Bad deal. Bad deal. We have yet to have it show up. I need to talk with our lab and fully understand if they would break the substance down enough to say everything in it. I'm fairly confident they do, but we have not heard of it here. But if it's in California, then it's here. Guaranteed. That's where all our fentanyl, California and Arizona, is where our fentanyl comes from. So if it's in California, it's here. So this is a very, very big problem. I should start the presentation with this, but I like to end it. So if fentanyl wasn't bad enough, here's the next bad thing. Again, not trying to freak people out, well, I guess I am. I'm trying to get the information out. This is showing up in fentanyl pills, and Narcan will not work on it. Last slide, and then we'll open it up for some other questions, okay?
There's always been one main problem with the films that we make, and it's the reason. There's always been one main problem with the films that we make, and it's the reason why we try to keep them as real and as relatable as possible. People just so commonly think that it will not happen to them. I'm talking about great people, nice people, cool people, intelligent people with big plans for the future, big potential. Gone because of one choice they didn't know would end their life. Fentanyl is coming for anyone and everyone. So the most important message that I can give to kids, to teens, young adults, anybody, is the same old message we've heard time and time again, and that's to really get serious about not even trying a drug. You see, back when we first started, I was telling kids not to use drugs because you might get hooked, you might get addicted. Now there's not even time for that. Now it's don't try a drug because you might actually not wake up tomorrow. You might actually not get another chance. One choice is all it takes. If you don't believe that, I guarantee you, at this point, there was someone very similar to you who wished they could be here right now to look into the camera and look into your eyes and say, don't do it. Please don't do it. Please, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Don't do it. Don't risk your life. So my question for you is, are you going to listen? Or will it be your family and your friends holding your picture, wishing they could have been there to tell you?
This is my son, Alexander. He died at 14 years old from fentanyl poisoning.
This is our daughter, Jessica. She was 29 years old when she was killed by fentanyl.
This is my daughter, Alex. She was murdered at 20 years old by a drug dealer who sold her a counterfeit pill made of fentanyl.
This is my son, Daniel Joseph Puerta Johnson, killed at the age of 16 by illicit fentanyl.
This is my son.
My daughter, Courtney Bradford, right there.
November 10, 2018.
Every presentation I give, there's someone that has been affected. And our kids have it hard, much harder than we had it as adults. The experimenting, the trying, the trusting ends with that a lot of times. So thank you for saying that to the group. Law enforcement does not make it a point to come out and give classes like this about everything that happens, right? We don't have resources, we don't have the time. This is one of those things that no one can ignore. And like your superintendent said, it can't just be me, it has to be everyone kind of continuing the conversation. Yeah.
Is this readily available to this presentation? Is it readily available to distribute throughout the school district and have the schools present this?
Yeah, so talking with Shane, Shane Gardner with Evergreen School District, that was their plan that they were looking at was, I have a shorter presentation, it's half this, it's about 30, 35 minutes that was made to kind of give in school, in classes or assemblies. So that's an option, and the schools can definitely do that.
I think that would be a great idea to distribute that throughout the school districts.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually recording it. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. We've created a web page to direct people to understand about the resources related to the dangers of fentanyl. It has all kinds of information about how to talk to your child and so forth and so on. So
I'm not talking about like web presentation. I'm talking about like school assemblies.
yeah,
We need to get this in behind the kids.
yeah, we are actually. We're working with our teaching and learning team to deliver that to the students from the teachers in at the various levels of our elementary, secondary, and middle school. So
Yes, up top there.
So I'm currently working on a project to educate high school students on how to administer naloxone. So I've already worked with Clark County Public Health to give presentations at Gila and today at Heritage. Evergreen, Union, and Mountain View are still to come later in the month. So if you have a student at any of those schools, it will be offered during lunch. They can come learn how to use the naloxone. So it's a great opportunity for students that there is that opportunity for them to learn.
Any other questions? Yes?
So you said on average, one dose doesn't, for the most, you're gonna need more than one of that narcan? So my concern is when we get them on the buses, we're only getting one.
You're probably getting a box.
No, we're getting one.
Oh, just one.
It's a box of two, they're breaking it
Oh,
apart,
gotcha.
they're putting it in a kit because.
Gotcha.
It's just-
So there's a whole lot of things that can determine how much you're gonna need, but for the most part, the safest bet is to have numerous, more than one. one might initially stop that overdose, but if medics can't get there quick enough to continue it, once they get to the hospital for the most part, they're put on a Narcan drip to keep the Narcan in their system to keep the overdose from occurring again. So they expire, they do. I can't, maybe in a couple years. Yeah.
2 years. 2 years.
So yeah, it could take several. Yeah. Did you have-
She has it.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Yes?
So is there a way to know how many Narcan you would have to give somebody before they come back?
No, so basically what happens, it's like waking someone up from a very deep sleep. And so they initially wake up and they're not real thrilled, okay? Imagine getting woke up, hey, you're late for school. That's a horrible feeling. So this stuff will work pretty quickly. So once you give it within 5-10 seconds for the most part, you'll see a reaction where someone is waking up. Kind of confused, but they kind of immediately know, what's happening, and then you have to watch them because they can go back out, and then you'd have to give it again. So there's no formula for it for how much, it's just your observations on how they're reacting to it.
We've administered it 3 times, and each time the medics, when they arrived, had to keep administering theirs that they had with them.
Yeah, it's nasty stuff. You have to stay on top of it. I've seen using it once and it working. So there's no rhyme or reason, but it's those situations where the constant use, because again, no amount of CPR is going to help if you don't have the naloxone stopping, that overdose going on inside of them. The what? No, I didn't talk about the Good Samaritan law. Yeah, it just says you can hurt someone if you're trying to save their life for the most part. Yes, up here.
How long do you have to administer it from when somebody kind of passes out? Because if we only have it in schools, like with the nurses and with security, and not in a classroom when something is happening, how long does somebody have to get there to administer it to where it's not effective?
So the question is, how long do you have to administer it when an overdose happens? And it's really as long as it takes if they're still breathing. If there's still time to start CPR, there's time to give naloxone to bring them back. So there's no, again, everyone's a little bit different of how long it takes for their body to completely shut down and for them to stop breathing. But it's the same, without oxygen, just a few minutes, and if there's an opportunity to still do CPR, you should still do that, and you can revive someone. But yeah, there's no steadfast within 2 minutes. It's just as long as they're still breathing, you still have that opportunity. Yes?
I think you mentioned that it's usually smoke or vape or whatever, but it is still being taken in like that candy-looking pill form too.
Correct. Yeah, and the candy-looking pill, they're smoking as well, but there are folks that just swallow the pill. Yeah, and we've seen that like in schools. They'll smoke it as well, but they'll just pop the pill. It's a little easier. There's no smoke, so it can be taken
And
either.
it's just as deadly, however it's being said.
Correct. And the smoking it gets the effects much quicker. Anything? Yes, sir?
What are we charging people with when they give a pill to somebody?
Good question. Good question. What are we charging people with when they give or sell the pills that kill someone? So it's called a controlled substance homicide. We also have a charge for delivering to a minor, if it's a minor. The controlled substance homicide, it's similar to manslaughter, to where you supplied someone with something and it killed them. Even if they don't die, if they're injured enough, if it causes some kind of brain damage, but they live, then that could even be a felony assault by supplying the drug. This is a hard case to make against the drug dealers. We're not getting any favors from the state law, and it's difficult. You have to prove that the drug came from them, that that's the drug they used. we've had some luck, but it's a difficult drug, or difficult crime to prove, but that's what it's called. Controlled substance homicide. I'm sorry, what?
Any legislation that's being put into place to kind of control this since it is illegal?
Not that I know of. So the federal side of the House has much stronger laws. So that's where, like I talked about with the two folks, that was 2 levels. This drug dealer sold it to that drug dealer sold it to that person, and she died. So they're able to charge both of those folks. So what we've been trying to do is go more towards the federal end of prosecution, because we get more time on that end. They're not always willing to take those charges federal, though, so then we fall back on the state side. The state side, the law is not horrible. It's just, like anything else, you have to prove that that person sold the drug, and that's not always the easiest thing to do.
As long as you don't have a third party.
I'm sorry?
Are illicit drugs legally in Oregon and Washington?
Well, they're not legal. They're not legal here. His question was, are illicit drugs legal? They're not legal, but the level of crime that they've really fell to is pretty minimal. Right now in Washington, it's a misdemeanor, and you really don't get charged until you've been caught 3 times in possession. And that's looking to be updated this year to possibly something different. So it's not that they're legal, it's just they're not a felony anymore like they used to be. Yes?
Sorry. Is there a clear trend on where young youth are getting pills? Have you been able to...
I will tell you that, so the question is there a trend on where youth are getting it? I will tell you that the online platforms are insane. We watch them, and people are on there like they're a drug supermarket. I mean, they will list every kind of drug they have for sale out in the open because they feel comfortable that they're not going to get caught, and it is the easiest place to go to buy these drugs. You have to have some connections, you got to be linked up, but it is one of the easiest places is right now online. Yeah.
If there is some students selling it to other students, are you guys trying to figure it out? Because I know that it's the easier way for them to get the kids addicted to it, like to get a high school or a middle school, like an 8th graders, to going to school with that and say, hey, try this. So are you guys like trying to figure it out if there's kids in the school trying to sell that?
So the question is, are we trying to go after or figure out who's selling the drugs in schools? Yes, if we have the information. We don't have 21 Jump Street anymore. I tried. Didn't work. They knew right away I was a cop. No, that's a valid question, but like I said, I like to throw jokes in there. If we have information that a kid is selling drugs in school, then yes. We will follow up on that and refer charges or arrest them if it gets to that.
Yeah,
It's
just scary to know like that there is kids that are like so. I mean, like let's be honest, there is parents that manage their phones and stuff, but there's some that they don't have the time.
Yeah.
So there is like many kids that got access to it because they got no money and they give them money and stuff, and they don't control that.
Yeah, things have to be brought up to us for us to do anything about it. We want to, but we've got to have the information that comes in. Yes?
So if you were on drugs or not, does that still mean like fentanyl, does that still mean it can kill you instantly?
If you're on drugs or not, like if you've been using it for a long time?
No, I mean like if you're using other drugs and like actually taking it or off drugs, like could it still also mean you can die from this drug?
Yeah, if you're using other drugs, is your question? Yes. If you're using other drugs, and actually one of the overdoses we had was a half a pill, where the individual was drunk, he had drank a lot of alcohol, and had never used fentanyl, and his girlfriend did, and so she had some, and so he just figured, I'm going to try half and see what the whole buzzes about, and that half a pill killed him. And it was in addition to the alcohol in his system that even made that, kind of act worse.
I just want to respect people's time. We had said 8:30. We'll stick around and answer questions. I see that people are kind of shuffling out. So I just wanted to thank Officer Sofianos for incredible presentation. I think you should get a medal for just doing this. So you got a medal for me. Really important. Thank you so much for providing this information. Hurt my feelings at all. Yeah.